Our talk for today, we're continuing in our series called Be Transformed. And in this current series, we've been looking at God's invitation to transformation, or spiritual formation, as we call it. And we've been using this definition here of spiritual formation from Robert Mulholland's book, a process of being formed in the image of Christ for the benefit of others. A process of being formed in the image of Christ for the benefit of others. And we've looked at how our transformation to be like Jesus is a process over a lifetime. It's not instantaneous, that we are being formed by the Holy Spirit, not forming ourselves, and that the destination is being like Jesus, having his characteristics, doing the things he did. And we get there by taking on the habits and practices of Jesus, the spiritual disciplines, as we sometimes call them. And we know that that is God's desire for all who follow him. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Romans, said this: God knew what he was doing from the very beginning. He decided from the outset to shape the lives of those who love him along the same lines as the life of his Son. God knew what he was doing from the beginning. He decided to shape the lives of those who love him along the same lines as the life of his Son. Yet it's possible in this process of transformation to make it into a very self-centered process, to make it all about me and what's going on inside of me. Yet the reality is something very different. That's one of the reasons why I love Mulholland's definition of spiritual formation, formed in the image of Christ for the benefit of others. While spiritual formation is about having the inner recesses of our lives touched by God's Spirit, the result of this inner transformation is that as we become more like Jesus, we can be and do like Jesus. Our inner transformation leads to external acts of love and grace. If you've been on a trip on a plane, admittedly not recently, you'll be familiar with the safety announcements that are made on each flight. Now, I read a variation on that announcement that apparently one flight attendant made. It put a smile on my face. They said, "In the event of sudden loss of cabin pressure, a mask will descend from the ceiling. Stop screaming, grab the mask and put it over your face. If you have a small child travelling with you, secure your mask before assisting with theirs. If you are travelling with more than one small child, pick your favourite." Why are we told to put on our own mask first before we help others? Couldn't that be seen as a selfish act? No, we're told to put on our own mask first because if we don't ensure our oxygen supply, within seconds we'll be incapable of helping other people. The author Parker Palmer, in his book Let Your Life Speak, says this: "I've become clear about at least one thing. Self-care is not a selfish act. It's simply good stewardship of the only gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer to others. Any time we can listen to true self and give it the care it requires, we do it not only for ourselves, but for the many others whose lives we touch." Spiritual formation, God's work of transformation in us, is not a selfish act. It's the way we become people who bless others, so we can bless even those people that we find difficult. It's the way we become people who don't hold grudges who aren't resentful, who care deeply about others, who speak words of kindness rather than words of hurt, who go the extra mile, who are capable of acts of great love and generosity. When God called Abraham and he told him his descendants would become Israel, God's people, God said this to him: I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. The purpose of being God's people was to bless others. And as followers of Jesus, we inherit that mandate. The disciple Peter put it like this: but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Again, the purpose is to be a blessing to others, to declare the praise of him who called you out of darkness. Spiritual formation is not a selfish act. We are transformed by the Holy Spirit so we can be a blessing to others. Everything God has done, is doing, and will ever do in our lives to form us in the image of Jesus, to make us whole, complete human beings, has the sole purpose of developing our relationship with God and with others. And that's why Jesus summarized what was most important as love God with all your heart, soul, mind and strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. Remember, we are formed in the image of Jesus. And Jesus was the least self-centered person ever. So as we allow God to transform our areas of un-Christ-likeness, so we become like Jesus, we become capable of the most outrageous acts of love and generosity. Not because we're trying so hard to be like this, but because as people being transformed to be like Jesus, these acts of generosity come naturally to us, as they did Jesus. This is how the early church grew. Before Pentecost, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, there were only 120 disciples, and post-Pentecost, 3,000 followers of Jesus. But by the time the Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity in 312 AD, scholars believe that Christians were about 10% of the population. That's about 6 million Christians in the Roman Empire. That's an amazing growth rate. And so how did that happen? Well, one of the reasons we know was because of the outward focused acts of love and generosity in the church. We know that because it's recorded by historians. There's a record from the 4th century, from the pagan emperor Julian, who was trying to turn the empire back to paganism following the early conversion of Constantine. And he bitterly acknowledged to a colleague this: when the poor happened to be neglected and overlooked by our pagan priests, the impious Galileans observed this and devoted themselves to benevolence. The impious Galileans support not only their poor, but ours as well. You see, the early Christians were known for these acts of love and caring for others. Spiritual formation is critical to our ability to join in with God's kingdom breaking through into our world. It's as transformed people we can join in with God in transforming the world. And we do this as a group of people who not only know the teachings of Jesus, but who put his teachings into practice. So how do we put this into practice? The author Dallas Willard, in his book Renovation of the Heart, says we need three things: VIM, vision, intention, and means. By vision, he means a vision of the life in the kingdom, an expectation of what it means to be transformed in the image of Jesus for the benefit of the others. We need to be able to see what that looks like, and I'll mention that in a second. And then we need intention. Intention to be that kingdom person, a willingness to allow the Holy Spirit to transform us into that person who, formed in the image of Jesus, can live out this kingdom life. It's that process of yielding, surrendering to God that we've talked about in previous talks. And then M, the means, the steps and practices that we can engage in that advance us in this life of transformation and formation, the spiritual disciplines and practices. They're the methods by which we obey the command to put off the old person and to put on a new person who is in the likeness of Christ.